Hi. I didn't expect to be making this type of video so soon, especially after my 20 video. If you haven't watched that, please watch it. It'd be much appreciated. But I do think that this topic is warranting of a video because it was affecting not only me but family and friends around me, and it was a a pretty significant point in my life, I could say. Also, I would claim it as the hardest point in my life, um, because when you hear the word cancer, it's kind of like, oh my God, it's like you start thinking of the worst situations, but I was able to get through it all, and as of today, I have found out that I have been completely, not completely, but like I have been cured for now from cancer. Now, what I did have was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's a cancer that targets the lymphatic system, and it can be pretty dangerous if you don't catch it early, like a lot of cancers, honestly. But thankfully, this was one of the most curable and treatable cancers that the medicine field knows of right now, and I was able to walk out of it just fine. Also, if it wasn't abundantly clear in the beginning, this will not have a script at all. I just wanted to throw all my thoughts out there and just explain my story and the sort of things I had to go through chemotherapy and cancer in general. So around mid-November, I started developing this cough. Now, the cough was just like normal, like cold cough, just dry cough, but it didn't really seem to get better. And I started, whenever I was walking around campus, I was wheezing and being short of breath every time I walk a great distance, and I just chalked that up to asthma. And because I had a pretty big history of asthma in my life, I had to go to the emergency room because I just stopped breathing in the middle of the night. So that's what I initially thought it was. It was asthma, and it wasn't until maybe end of January where things started to get a little concerning, because on top of that, there was a lump on my shoulder that was starting to grow, and that was probably the catalyst to telling me and my family that, okay, there's something wrong here and we need to get checked out. So we did. I believe it was Monday, sometime in February, probably early February. I don't really remember my timeline, but we went to go see my doctor, and we were very concerned about our cough, but more specifically, we were more concerned about this lump on my shoulder. So she basically gave me an x-ray, and she told me and my mom that there was a huge mass in my chest that kind of grew. Don't remember the size of it exactly. If I ever find it, I will put it in the video. But that was concerning because our doctor told me and my mom that it could either be an infection in my chest or cancer. So during that appointment, she ordered a CT scan without dye, which is kind of confusing to me. But excuse me, we were able to go to that, and told us we couldn't see anything without the dye, so I had to come in the next day to get dye in me so they could see what exactly was going on in my chest. We were later able to talk to a doctor about what exactly it was, and he was fairly certain that the thing in my chest was in fact a tumor. And what that tumor was doing was it was pushing up against my lungs. This caused some coughing and wheezing and stuff like that. And what I learned recently, which was baffling to me, that it was kind of pushing up against my heart too. And it caused, I think it caused liquid to fill up into my lungs or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Medical professionals, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But it was pushing up against not only my lungs, but my heart too. And that was it, causing the wheezing, shortness of breath, and stuff like that, yada yada yada. And we needed to get a biopsy. So we did. I think it was Friday. I had surgery for my biopsy, and he wanted to put a medical port in my chest. So we did that, and recovery process was a little iffy. I mean, it was just like a normal surgery, you know. It was my first one, technically, first medical surgery that doesn't involve the teeth, I guess. Because actually, before all this, I had my wisdom teeth pulled out. So it's not my first surgery, but like first surgery that I had to be in the hospital for, outpatient surgery. And we were told that this could be Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And we were kind of hoping it was Hodgkin's lymphoma because that's more predictable and more treatable. But it ended up being non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The exact term, I'm going to try to remember it. It's like mediastinal diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. Basically what that means is that it's a cancer that's located inside the chest, right? And fortunately for me, I was stage 4. So we had to get treatment done right away because it was a fast-growing cancer that could easily spread to other parts of my body if not treated properly. So I believe maybe a few weeks later we started chemotherapy, and it was quite an experience. Just sitting in a room with a bunch of older people who have maybe worse cancers than I do, and I don't know, it was just a weird feeling. It was just a really weird feeling to just be a 20-year-old dude sitting in a room with old people who have these deadly diseases. Like, it's kind of like a feeling that I don't belong there, you know? And a lot of people shared the same sentiment with me. Like, you're 20 years old and you have cancer. That's kind of crazy. During chemotherapy was probably the roughest time of the year and possibly my life, because the treatment itself was very aggressive. It wanted to target the cancer as hard as possible. So that means your symptoms probably will get worse. What I had to do was I had to get a needle 4x4 from the blood work people at the oncology center, and I had to carry around this chemotherapy bag, which made this like automatic hand sanitizer type of noise. So that's gonna be interesting whenever I hear that again. But it was just hard carrying around that bag because it was so cumbersome, and I just had this feeling of just like, I want to rip this out so bad because I don't want to do this anymore. And it was awful. I'm gonna be a little candid right here. It was awful. And just sitting there on laying on my couch feeling like I want to throw up. I really do. And all these other symptoms. It was like mentally it was really hard on me, right? And I do not wish what I went through on my worst enemies, honestly. Um, Obviously, I lost my hair. um, Although now it's starting to grow back. Uh, it was hard, you know. It was hard to lose your hair because really you really haven't seen yourself unless you are bald. You really haven't seen yourself without hair, and you kind of just have to live with it, you know. There's no warning, there's no heads up. It's just boom, you're starting to lose hair, we gotta shave it off. And before this I had really long and thick hair, like really really long. Not like, you know, girls have long hair, or like, you know, bunch of metal guitarists, you know, yeah, I mean, it was long enough, and it had to come off. And just looking at the pile of hair and looking at the mirror, it was hard, because it was just a reminder that you're going through a thing that not a lot of people go through at my age, and it sucks. It really does. I guess the worst part was losing the eyebrows, frankly, because your eyebrows kind of like shape your face a little. It kind of defines your face, and seeing that go, it kind of made me look weird. Not even gonna lie. So I'm glad those are coming back though. My eyebrows and kind of my mustache too. But when I mean everything was going. My leg hairs, my armpit hairs, my hair, and even my pubes. Like, so it was so weird just having shaven arms and stuff like that. Because it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel you, especially if you've been living your whole life with hair. So that was tough to deal with. At the time, I was kind of dealing with school as well, which kind of added on to the stress of chemotherapy. I mean, thankfully, if I had a fall semester last year, while I was in chemotherapy, I probably would have just withdrawn from school that whole semester, because it would be too much, way too much. Thankfully, this semester, the spring semester, was very, very lenient, or not lenient, very easy in comparison, because I didn't have to deal with many classes and much work. So it was a pretty smooth ride. It could have been much worse. And on top of that, my professors were able to help me out with everything, and were very flexible with my schedule. I mean, they had to be, but still, it was very much appreciated when I got emails back saying, yeah, we can work with you, and stuff like that, because it makes my cancer experience a lot easier when people are able to work with you. I had my second PET scan around my 4th session of chemotherapy. Actually, just before that. Yeah, just before that. I had my second PET scan to kind of check on what was going on in there. I was already mentally feeling like, oh my god, I'm dreading this, you know, yada yada. But when I got the results back from my doctor about my PET scan, I was very surprised, to say the least, because he told me that the cancer is almost gone. And when I heard that, I was very excited, because it told me that all of this was not in vain, that it's actually working, and you're gonna get through with this sooner rather than later. And after that point, my spirit during chemotherapy like flew through the roof. Like, I felt really good about getting through this, and I didn't feel like I was stressed anymore. I mean, that's also due to the fact that I was probably done with the semester around there. So that was incredible news at the time, and probably the best news of the year. So yeah, it was great. And my fourth treatment session went through with flying colors. Besides the symptoms I've experienced so far, but I was already in high spirits, and it felt really good about chemotherapy. And it wasn't until the sixth session where my spirits were at its ultimate highs, because at that point I knew that this was it. Like, no more after this, because the treatment's working and my tumor has shrunken to a significant amount. There's almost no cancer in my body. So this is it. And that week almost flew by in a snap of a finger, because I just was in this mindset of like, I want to get this done right away, as soon as possible. And the nurses there were feeling the same way. Like, we want to get you out of here as soon as possible and want to make sure you have a great experience. And I did. I finished my chemotherapy sessions, and it felt incredible to be finally done with chemotherapy and be gone with those really terrible symptoms that I wouldn't wish on anybody. It was almost like you were bedridden sick throughout the whole week, and then some, because after your chemotherapy sessions, for me, it was I would get the treatment, I'd feel bad throughout the week, and then I'd feel even worse during the weekend, and I'd feel like I just want to throw up. I feel like I couldn't move. My body started aching, and it was just awful. It was just awful. So I didn't really want to celebrate in full until I got the all clear from my doctor. So that came maybe a couple weeks after, when we did my final PET scan, which was last week. Yeah. And I was feeling extremely nervous throughout the whole thing. I was like, what if this happens? What if blah 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 blah? Because it actually has. It was a while until I got treatment. So maybe there was a possibility that it came back somehow, even though it probably would take longer to grow. So I was practically shitting bricks while waiting for to be scanned. And when I did and got done, went home, I was anxiously waiting for a response, an all clear, something from my doctor. I even texted one of the nurses saying like, no pressure or anything, but when are the scans going to be done? Or the review, when is the review going to be done for the scans? And my nurse told me that he's working on it and he's looking through it. Because she told me that she knew I was stressed about it. She knew everybody was stressed about it. But I got the call later that day, and he told me that my tumor in my chest was almost completely gone. like very faint amount of things that were lit up in that PET scan, which meant that this cancer has been beaten, and I can now go on and live a cancer-free life, and hopefully this won't come back. And it was kind of like the feeling when I heard that news was kind of like the feeling when I first heard that I got cancer. Not like sadness or anything, but like I just didn't know how to react. Like I couldn't process the information, and I didn't know what to do. So I just said, wow, that's great, that's fantastic. And then we hung up. And it was later that day that it started to sink in, and I started to realize what I had just done. I beat cancer. Like, it's as simple as that. I beat cancer. Which not a lot of people can say that they have. Especially at my age. Like, Jesus. Like, it was kind of overwhelming at that time, because I spent all this time in treatment and worrying about getting better, but all those worries were just gone. They're no more, right? I get to move on with my life without having to worry about this cancer affecting my life. And I told my friend this, and I'm not gonna lie, I started crying. Like, it was a very emotional time, because this really was a huge chapter in my life. Not really so positive, but I was able to walk out of it scot-free and healthy. During chemotherapy, it was incredibly hard to do things. Simple hobbies were just a chore to do because I had no energy at all. I just felt completely drained. I was fatigued, and I frankly didn't want to do anything. It felt like if I was gonna do something, I was gonna get sick, because I was extremely nauseous throughout the duration of the week. But if it wasn't for my friends who were there for me, I don't think I would have had as easy of a time with coping with this cancer thing than I did with my friends, because I just needed someone to be there to talk to, and share some lighthearted jokes about the situation, because it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. You know what I mean? You can joke, and it still can too, because it's a serious topic, and I don't want to bring everybody's mood down when I talk about it. I just want to make lighthearted jokes. But because they were there, I was in a much better mood than maybe a lot of other patients who are maybe hospitalized, And even though this cancer wasn't terminal, it still kind of drained me, emotionally. So being able to socialize with friends and family was great. It was great. I always had this thought in the back of my mind of how people felt when I had cancer, but I never really understood what people were going through, family and friends were going through when they found out I had cancer and I'm going through this disease and this treatment. It wasn't really put into perspective until two events, I think, in my life. during that period, and they were all after treatment. First one, I was attending my uncle's birthday party, and towards the end, maybe, my uncle came up to me, and I've never seen him get this emotional about me, about something before, because he was telling me that he was glad that I was able to make it, and being cancer free was the best gift ever for him. And I really tried not to get emotional as well at that time, and I didn't. I just smiled and told him I'm glad to be here too, because I was, being able to walk on two legs again without feeling bad, like physically, was a great feeling, and I was able to celebrate my uncle's birthday. And the second event was I visited my friend over the summer after treatment, and me and her were talking about like stuff in life, I guess. And we got into the topic of my cancer, and she was telling me how her and another friend of mine were feeling when they first found out about my diagnosis. And she told, I remember this, she told her friends about my situation. At that time, they didn't really know my full diagnosis, I guess, if it was cancer or not. But I remember she told me that day that when I found out that you had cancer, that you texted it to me, I was sitting in a classroom and with my friends, and when they learned that it was stage 4 cancer, the aura in that room kind of changed. I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was around there. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but it just really put into perspective for me the gravity of the situation, not only for me but for others, because it was a very rough time, and especially those two were very worried if I would even make it or not. And yeah, and here I am, still standing today. A lot of people say I'm the strongest for being able to beat this disease, but in reality, I really couldn't have done it without the help of my friends and family. They pushed my mood out of a depressing place and back into what I was before. And it was the drive to show my friends that I'm going to get better that kept me motivated, that I did want to get better, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone who kept their thoughts and prayers and supported me throughout my journey. It was the hardest period of my life that I will ever experience. I don't think it will be any harder than this, unless I get like fucking terminal cancer or something, God forbid. But for now, it was a hard time, and I'm so glad that I was able to communicate with others, and I was even able to distract myself, It was great. And being able to see my friends, my two friends that I met on Roblox, of all places, in real life, was just amazing, and it was a very nice distraction from the grim reality of cancer. and I was able to have a good time with both of them, and I miss you guys, I really do. But I'd like to end this video off on a I guess a piece of advice for anyone going through something similar or even worse, and that is that no matter what situation you're put in, whatever treatment you're going through, just know that people are behind you in every step of the way, and they're willing to support you no matter the cost. And if it may seem grim, just keep that thought in that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get through it. I promise. And everybody's there with you, following you, supporting you. So, thank you for watching this video. I probably have some Overwatch video in the background, just as background footage. But on a different note, less serious, I do have another video probably coming out soon. It's another Overwatch video, but I'm gonna be working on that. I just wanted to get this out here just so people can hear about my experiences and what I went through, so that way maybe others can take something from this, I guess, and learn from it. Not really learn from it, or just like get advice, I guess, and experience, and learn from what I went through, if they are going through a similar, situation. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys.